Hey everyone, welcome. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Cory Simpson. I'm the CEO of ICIT, and I have the good fortune of being joined today by my good friend and colleague, Matthew Edgars, over at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Today we're going to be talking about the Cybersecurity and Information Sharing Act of 2015, not to be confused with CISA, the organization. And the CISA 2015 is getting ready to expire in September. But before we get into all of that, I want to kind of zoom out for a minute and do a little bit of introductions and scene setting. So ICIT is the Institute of Critical Infrastructure Technology. We have the mission of securing, modernizing, and making resilience critical infrastructure that provides for foundational need. And today's topic is core to that, as it allows information sharing between the public and private sectors. That's so vital because when you're looking at a threat environment that includes both the public and private sectors, each see half. The only way that they see the whole picture is by being able to share information, analyze that information, and then talk. And it also enables them, this particular act enables them to do this in real time. And with that, I'll turn it over. I'll do a little bit of an introduction to Matt. Matt, I'll give you the high level sort of your bio. So, and then I'll turn it over to you for some opening remarks. So, Matthew Edgars serves as the Vice President for Cybersecurity Policy and Cyber Intelligence and Security Division at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, where he leads the Chamber's Cybersecurity Working Group. He develops and advocates for business-driven cybersecurity policies before Congress and federal agencies, and routinely testifies before lawmakers on industry's perspectives regarding cyber legislation, regulation, and national resilience. Matt played a key role in advocating for the Cybersecurity and Information Sharing Act of 2015, guiding a coalition of 50 business associations across sectors to secure its passage. He also handles homeland and national security issues, including chemical security, biosecurity, emerging threats, on behalf of the Chamber's National Security Task Force. His insights are regularly featured in national media, and he has been recognized as a top cybersecurity policy influencer by the Washington Post, Washingtonian, and the Christian Science Monitor. Prior to joining the Chamber, Edgars worked on Capitol Hill for members of the House Appropriations and Homeland Security Committees, and served as a director of public policy at leading government affairs firm. He holds degrees from Indiana University and George Mason University, and is a graduate of the Executive Cybersecurity Program at Harvard Kennedy School and the Naval Postgraduate School. Matt, thank you. It's good to be with you. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Cory, great to be with you. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be with ICIT and you all, and I understand you guys are doing well, growing, and I'm glad to hear it, because one of the things we often will say at the Chamber is if there's something that the business community, the world needs, we need to do more of it. So I'm very glad to be with you guys. Hey, let me appreciate the walk through the introduction. It's very kind of you. Just to kind of paint a picture a little bit more in people's heads, my day-to-day job involves leading our cybersecurity working group, which has got about 250, 300 companies and trade associations. We get together almost every week to talk about a policy, think something like the cybersecurity framework or a law. We've got plenty of those, or maybe some kind of draft bill or a regulation. And there's plenty of those, and we've spent, let's say, the last year writing a number of comments on things, including CISA, which I guess loosely you could say CISA 15 is tied to. You know, I think in a lot of ways, CISA 15, the discussion is really, really important, given not only the pending expiration in September, late September, and I think we'll I'm fairly optimistic, but I think in a lot of ways you could say that it's the linchpin. CISA 15 is the linchpin of U.S. cybersecurity. Not only is it codified in law, but I think more and more it's a mindset, right? I think one of the things I think of often is to lose CISA 15 is analogies often break down, but I often think of it as taking your foot off the gas pedal. We don't want to see any kind of decrease in the sharing and receiving of cyber threat indicators. I think without a doubt, we would see a much more complex and dangerous cyber environment than we've already have. One of the things I would probably say, just by way of background on CISA 15, just a little bit about where it came from. Folks may recall that I think one of the first bills I know I ever saw that eventually became CISA 15 was legislation that appeared in the House back in 2011. You could even say that the Lieberman-Collins bill in 2012 had a title that involved information sharing. But I think one of the things that stands out to me is during that process from about 2011 through 2015, you had the appearance of the cybersecurity framework. And I thought, or I think a lot of people viewed the combination of the cybersecurity framework being developed in about 2013, I think appearing in early 14, then plus cyber information sharing would really be a force multiplier, if you will, for defending critical infrastructure in particular against malicious actors, whether they be cyber criminals or nation states or their proxies. I think I also would probably add, and then I'll finish, is I think CISA grew out of a significant recognition by, let's say, the House. There was at least one or more hearings on something like CISA 15 or what became CISA 15. Leaders of the House Homeland Security Committee definitely believed that businesses ought to be sharing with one another, and we ought to be sharing with the government, and then government sharing back to the business community. Likewise, the Senate. Things I often think of is when you think of kind of stepping stones to where we are. The Senate passed CISA out of the Senate Intelligence Committee passed CISA in the spring of 2015, and there's a great committee report that goes with it. But I would say in sum, there's been broad bipartisan recognition on the need for cyber information sharing. And fortunately, that remains true to today, with the Senate probably taking the most concrete action on renewal up until this point. And I'll probably finish there.
Matt, that was fantastic. I appreciate that, and I want to dig in a little bit and pull a couple threads on what you just laid out so eloquently. When this particular bill, first of all, just at the highest level, and I know it's something that the business community is uniquely sensitive to, regulation, being forced to do things, particularly in the cybersecurity space, where we often talk about harmonizations because they have so many requirements. So as we
Right.
look to CISA 2015, as I understand it, it's completely voluntary. Is that right? So it puts so there's no mandatory requirements in it. Is that, do I have that right, or are there mandatory
No,
requirements?
you're correct. It's always interesting. I think we will often present to different groups of folks that are expert, meaning they could tell you about the non-federal entity guidance that CISA has published in partnership with DOJ, and it was updated in spring of last year. But correct, CISA 15 does not contain any mandates on businesses. In fact, it was very explicit about stating that the government couldn't task businesses to share information. One thing that was really important back in 2013, 14, 15 was the need of protecting privacy, civil liberties. One of the things that I think the industry and government have a very strong record in is protecting privacy and civil liberties under CISA. I think one of the things that we recognized originally that was that the types of information, CTI, cyber threat indicators, and defensive measures really didn't need to contain privacy information, particularly information that you know at the time of sharing. So yes, no mandates.
Well, and I think to go back to that, the original, some of the battles and the, when this went through the initial, for initial becoming law. I remember, this was shortly after the Edward Snowden, and
That's right.
yeah, so I'm coming from, an intel and national security background. We just say the name that shall not be spoken. But like that, he put out on this that, like, the warning to Congress that if you want to break the internet, pass this law. Well, he got a lot of things wrong. That was certainly one of them. I think this law has gone on to prove that notion wrong. And there were a lot of concerns about privacy and civil liberties. I think those have been proven wrong as well. And then I think the people that participate in the program, they're doing it voluntarily, and they're now advocating for the maintenance of being able to continue to use that framework on a voluntary basis. What are the big challenges? Why is this hard? It seems intuitive that you would want to do it. What are the obstacles right now that we're facing?
Yeah, I would say probably first just thinking about your comment on the Snowden revelations back in 2013. It did present a lot of challenges for getting an information sharing bill across the finish line, but I think stakeholders knew that we would have to take some extra steps to assure stakeholders in industry, outside of industry, that we would be safeguarding privacy and civil liberties. Um, Couple items that I think are noteworthy to flag just on the privacy civil liberties front is, so CRS put out a quick summation of CISA 15 renewal, noted that there's been no issues related to privacy civil liberties, and also the GAO found that too in a short, I think, two-pager that it released within the last month or so. I think some of the challenges that we see with respect to reauthorization, probably just as you would expect. Nothing moves simply in Congress these days. Congress's plates, lawmakers' plates are very full. There have been a number of big bills that have occupied Congress's attention over the last several weeks, months. And I think it's often the case, not surprising. Most people will probably put things off until they really have to deal with them. We didn't want, I think, at the time, because I recall back in the fallish of 2015, we didn't want there to be an expiration date. But of the some 20 or so amendments that were offered up on the Senate floor, to CISA 15, there was a 10-year sunset window. So here we are. I think, if anything, it's probably notable that we've got um, legislation in the Senate from Senators Peters and Rounds that's teed up to extend CISA 15 by 10 years. It's also notable that the Senate Intelligence Committee's uh, Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal 26 contains a 10-year extension. It's also, I think, pretty notable, and I'm probably pleased to note that it looks like, sounds like Senator Paul, the chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, is open to, and at least according to last week's uh, nomination hearing, including Sean Planky, that he's open to extending the law, which is, I think, in a lot of ways a breakthrough. But I think it
Yeah.
also pinpoints that there is significant bipartisan support for the bill. frankly, I don't know of anyone really that doesn't want to see that bill extended because of the value it brings to dealing with all the cyber threats and risks out there, and there's no shortage of them, Cory, as you guys know.
Yeah, that's it, it's a great point. I think, oftentimes when you're building campaigns here in DC, you look at it and you look like who's for, who's against, who's neutral. When you do the who's against list, it's a very short list. But I want to pull the thread on a bit there of just like current state of play, like where are we? The Committee of Jurisdiction in the House is HLS. They just had a leadership change, as I know you're tracking.
Mm-hmm.
So in Garbarino, who is Representative Garbarino, has come in and said this is an absolute priority when the House gets back in session. The Congress is, the House is already in its August recess, which gives the members an opportunity to go home and do in district work.
Correct.
Very, very conscientious to not say vacation, because it is. I think they would take
They're
offense to
working.
being they're working just in district.
Yeah.
And then I think on the Senate side, the two committees of jurisdiction are the Senate Armed Services Committee, so the SASC, and then HISGAC, the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. And just to orient everyone to kind of current state of play. And within, you just mentioned Senator Rounds, who chairs the Senate Armed Service Committee Cyber Subcommittee,
Correct.
and Ranking Member Peters for the Homeland Security. So the SASC and HISGAC, the two committees of jurisdiction in the Senate, they have signed a joint letter. The head, notably absent is Senator Rand Paul. And, I will just say, going back to, he voted against it in 2015. Then
Correct.
a first term senator. He's, politics aside, he's a lot of things, but consistent he is. He has been very
Yes.
consistent over time. He voted against the big beautiful bill. He holds his principles even when it's with his own party. And on this particular issue, I mean, the fact that he has shown movement, I think, is a very positive sign. But I think one of the things that he's looking for is not what I think you and I would call a clean authorization. So that
Yes.
he's looking for some changes. Just maybe help orient everyone. You have a lot more experience in this than I do, but like what would changing it? You have 30 days essentially when the members come back that you got to get a lot of when you say the plate is full, what that
Right. Right.
translates
Right.
to. Yeah, what that translates to for the for our listeners or for our audience is there's only so many floor hours that you can schedule. Floor for the House, floor for the Senate. Each bill or legislative action requires that time. There are
Mm-hmm.
hundreds, thousands of bills. And so this is something that we know they have to get floor time for. And adding amendments seems to add would whether you agree with the amendments or not, separate issue, but it would just add time. At least that's my, very, very, I would say novice take, but maybe you could help drill in a little bit, expand, contract. What specifically maybe is Rand Paul looking for? What's the current state of play? And how do you see that timeline playing out when they get back from the August recess?
You said 30. I wish we did had 30. By my count, maybe as of yesterday, I would say at least in the Senate, we've got about 20 working days from about yesterday until September 30. Kind of a quick walkthrough of where I think the state of play is, at least in the Senate. Maybe let's start there, and then in the House. And before we maybe even do that, let's maybe kind of pan out. It's great that Secretary of Homeland Security Nome, has signaled more than once her support for extending CISA
Okay, has
15,
I think even the White House has too, right? Like the administration
yes,
is behind. Yeah. Okay.
which is which is terrific. We want all the support we can get. Uh, Sean Planky, nominee for heading up CISA, has stated more than once, including at his hearing last week on the 24th, he supports it. We've had senators at that hearing on both the Democratic side of the aisle and Republican express support for extending CISA. We've got and I'll just go shorthand, we've got the Senators Peters and Rounds bill. That bill enjoys a number of co-sponsors. That has not been marked up yet. It's not clear if anything like that will get marked up in the Senate Homeland Security Committee. We've got the Senate Intelligence Committee with its provision in its annual Intelligence Authorization Act. So we've got some tools to work with on the Senate. I don't know if we're going to actually have time for formal markups. It's not clear. I'll say I don't know at this point, given the timing. I think there's been probably well-informed thinking from Hill staff and folks on and off the Hill and elsewhere that legislation would probably get tied to one of a very few vehicles that typically move this time of year. It could be a spending bill, a continuing resolution. There's some debates about the viability of a CR and whether or not we're going to have a shutdown. I'll leave that kind of over here, and I won't look at it. And then we've got things like the defense bill that passes every year, and that could be a vehicle for some kind of extension. Staying in the Senate, Mr. Paul has said that he wants to make sure that there's language in a renewal bill that safeguards constitutionally protected speech. My read of CISA 15 is it really seeks to do that, but I think we're all, as we would always say, very open to whatever lawmaker wants to put forward. In the House, and hopefully I haven't missed anything, and I probably have, but in the House, we are awaiting legislation from Chairman Garbarino, who's been front and center on cyber issues since he's been in Congress, or at least since he's been on the House Homeland Security Committee, on the subcommittee that has jurisdiction over CISA and cyber. I think that's probably a pretty good place to leave it. But
Yeah.
I'm a lot more optimistic, I should say, now than I was probably a few weeks ago. Perhaps you could say maybe I think it was May 13. The chamber led a letter to the full Congress urging reauthorization of CISA 15. I think we had about 51 signers on that, mostly associations. I know you guys did too, signal your support, which is terrific. More the merrier.
Yeah, and let's maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about, your leadership, the chamber's leadership on this issue. ICIT is in support of the reauthorization of this bill, specifically a clean reauthorization, not because I don't believe, or we don't believe that it can't be improved upon or anything. It's
Yeah.
just a practicality. It's a
Mm-hmm.
good framework. Things can always be made better. We're still striving in the United States to form a more perfect union. But like as we
Yeah.
continue that, I think right now probably the most important thing that we can do is just ensure the enduring framework continues and that information sharing continues. But to really highlight your leadership and the chamber's leadership on us, maybe talk about that letter and what you hear from
Mm.
industry about what they experience on this, and why they want it reauthorized so much.
So I would probably say we visited with, first off, I would note that we visited with practically every office, Senate, and House that will have some kind of direct role in reauthorizing CISA 15. They've all overwhelmingly said that they support making sure that CISA 15 doesn't lapse. Do we get a 3-year, 5-year, or 10-year reauthorization? I don't know at this point, but our main message is the vast majority of our members have said we just don't want to see CISA lapse. As I said in the kind of the beginning, we don't want to take the foot off the gas on kind of that policy and legal framework that really enables sharing and receiving indicators. I think without a doubt, CISA 15 is definitely the bedrock of U.S. cybersecurity. It's probably the most important cyber law that Congress has passed, at least in my time at the chamber. Maybe some might say that's debatable, but I think without a doubt, I can't probably point to another law that's probably had such positive impact for companies. I do think, and you mentioned kind of a clean extension versus do we change things? I think a lot we'll know a lot based on what kind of an extension we see, whether or not we will be looking at changes, because I know that there are some that do want to make changes, including in the House. If we have a shorter extension, if you will, a few years maybe, there may be room to kind of look at making some practical changes. Frankly, it's been 10 years. But I think if push came to shove, I think many entities would be very pleased with a clean 10-year extension.
And maybe pull the what I think organizations and individuals that maybe don't deal, or maybe they don't even know that they're in a forum that it is been allowed for by.
Cory, I don't know. It may be me. I may be freezing up, or maybe you froze up, but I will pick up the ball while maybe you start or I start. If I heard you correctly, there are maybe parties that are kind of benefiting from CISA being in place, but they may not know it. One of the reasons why I think CISA 15 is so important, it's not so much of the words written down on paper that are now law. It's that I think there's a correlation between organizations that are sharing and receiving threat information, doing so internally, but also doing so externally. A number of years ago,
Oh my
Cory,
goodness.
are you back with us?
I am back.
I was on a riff, so I just kind of picked up the ball and ran with it. So I will just say, I do believe, because I think about 10 years ago, I testified on the topic, and I said there are about 4 categories of information sharing groups. And I want to see more and more groups kind of get within the framework, if you will, small s, of sharing. So you've got early information sharing, those companies that have been sharing for a long time, right? They were sharing pre-CISA 15. Then you got those ISAC and ISAL members that may not be sharing directly with the government, but they've been sharing with each other. The third group, I would probably say, I kind of call the intrigued but cautious. The lapse of CISA 15 would kind of keep the intrigued but cautious on the sidelines. And then increasingly, I want to see the small business community, which comprise the bulk of our members, and then the kind of under-resourced groups take advantage of CISA 15. I'll stop there.
No, and I apologize for dropping there. These things always tend to happen in
It
the moments.
happens. It
Yeah,
happens.
technology. Um, but I really do the body of organizations that have grown up, the comfort at which I would say the respective communities have been able to leverage this to really start piecing together a better understanding of our ecosystem at large, which takes the information from the government, which is unique to them, the information to the private sector that is unique to them, And I think I know we hit a little bit on this, but we did an event at RSA. I can't, you may have participated in it. I can't remember. It wasn't this year, it was last year, with the
Hmm.
Department of Justice, and really talked, pulled like some of the threads on like, hey, what are some of, the sticking points? Because even from the department's perspective, like we the liability protections are real. Like we
Hmm.
really we want to encourage information sharing. And yes, we understand that, for market perspectives, this can give people certain advantages, but like the scope and scale. When you're able to give information that could, you catch a 0 day and you could give it to one of the hyperscalers and they can give it to millions of people, or billions of people, pretty instantaneously.
Right.
That's just something that I'm very proud of, that we've been able to recognize that value, to be able to bring it, because it really extends beyond the United States, because it helps
It
so
does.
many, yeah, so many organizations. And so I like just kind of reflect on this, and you were a part of that original, the original, I'm not going to call it a battle, but the original push to get this done. And it was at a time, we oriented it to, contextually to, I mean, 2 years post Snowden, it was a very different environment, than it is today. And so there were a
Right.
lot of, and so we got it done. And in the 10 years that have passed, when you talk about it or you reflect on it, like
Hmm.
what are some of the highlights that you're like, this is what that enabled? I'm very
Ah,
proud of this. Yeah.
you know, let me. There were moments where it probably did seem like a battle, but I think if you don't like doing that kind of work, maybe just don't do it. But I really enjoy kind of leading coalitions to work on a bill. It really is I think useful and fun. I would probably say just quickly, kind of those big protections everyone that is in this space they're looking for, they or their attorneys and maybe cyber advisors. So that liability protections that you mentioned, protection from public disclosure, protections related to regulations, and then antitrust matters. I think those are kind of the key pillars of protections that underpin the law. You asked me what are some of the sort of the benefits. I often think about uh, a group, just to kind of keep it simple, the National Council of ISACs. There were groups that were sharing before CISA 2015, but I think we've seen the growth in a number of ISACs since then, and I really want to see that number of entities grow, not only within an ISAC. For example, I believe if I've got my numbers correctly, the aviation ISAC started with some 7 members and now has about 140. I think that really adds value to all those companies from a cyber um, standpoint. I would say more strategically, not that anyone will do it, but if anybody is just at all interested in just kind of reading a little bit more in an appendix to our comments to CISA on July 2 last year, we kind of walk through what we really would say is here's what probably CISA 15 2.0 needs to look like, which is businesses share with government, whether voluntarily or through one of the mandated disclosure, notification, or reporting requirements. There are some 50 impacting industries across multiple sectors. But to take that information and go degrade and disrupt bad actors. I think the first era of CISA was kind of government putting its thumbprint on or imprint on the need to do more sharing between and among industry and government. But now I think we've definitely shown the importance of that, the effectiveness of that. But I think what many industry parties, particularly sophisticated companies in this space, we want to try to kind of make life much more difficult for bad actors. So they have a much more difficult time doing what they do, because what they do, it really has an impact on U.S. economic and national security. And I think folks on this call understand that well, or briefing, but kind of getting that word out to more and more parties, I think, is always important.
Yeah, I mean, the last take on that was in terms of an industry. If you look at the cybercrime industry, it's the third largest economy in the world. So
Mhm.
the U.S., China, and then cybercrime. And so there's just massive amounts of theft and disruption going on, and more of our society is becoming very dependent on digital connectivity. And so this is something that's just so imperative for securing that, because the first step, I'm a long time federal prosecutor, a career in the military, that the first step
Mhm.
to preventing crime, to stopping bad actors, is knowing, right? Knowing who they are, where they're coming from, being able to have
Mhm.
the information that you need to share that out. So a lot of points, this is an enabling mechanism to be able to do just that. And I do the ISACs. There's the information sharing and analysis center, for those that may not know,
Mhm.
have been
Thank
just,
you
yeah,
for the
so they've
acronym
been
check.
they've been very, very different, I think, across sectors, and across, and I know, and I'm not um, saying the validity of this, but there are different perspectives, and individual perspectives may vary. Some of the criticism is that a lot of them tend to benefit the bigger actors, or the bigger. What do you hear from smaller and medium-sized businesses about how they benefit from forums like that? Because I know that's a lot of your constituents.
My general thought on the small business entity is, I think in a lot of ways, small doesn't necessarily mean less cyber sophisticated, but by and large, I would like to think that we can increase in this next kind of phase of CISA 15, if you will, an extension, is probably having small businesses through service providers take advantage of a cyber threat information sharing ecosystem that they may not even be aware exists, and that's fine. They're probably busy. My impression is, in talking with many of our small businesses, they're all about the kind of business of doing what they do day to day, and they may not have professionals that are teed up to engage ISACs. In the time that probably remains, one of the things I would try to stress is there may be a periodic lapse of CISA 15 for maybe a short period. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I think organizations should, as best they can, keep on keeping on. There was certainly sharing before CISA 15. There will definitely be sharing after. But if there is a small kind of timeout, if you will, uh, don't I would probably say don't overreact. Keep on keeping on. Cory, I think you're coming back online, but I think I want to probably end on a really positive note, that I think within the last few weeks of listening to folks in the Senate, in the House, and membership, your constituency, I think we'll probably end up in a good place. At least I'm trying to be very optimistic. So we'll see. But I think the next 20 to 30 working days in Congress are really going to be instructive. You know, one thing I'll probably notice, since Cory, you coming back on, I do see you. But I might just note one of the things that I think is going to be really important is with extending CISA 15 is making sure that we don't lose that trust factor that people and organizations have built up over many years. I recently wrote a piece for I think it's CXO Tech magazine, and there's a paragraph or two on the importance of trust and trust building and maintaining that trust. And I think it's entitled Historic Cybersecurity Law is Up for Renewal. So if anybody wants more on that, they could probably go right to the pick a search engine and go for it. Hey, Ami,
Yes, Matt, thank
I
you.
think we may have hit 000.
I think we did a 0-0 time, but good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ami Copeland. I'm the Senior Director for Engagements and Partnerships at ICIT. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but we have reached time, and I just wanted to thank Matt so much. Hey, Cory, welcome back.
Hey,
Just wrapping up here and saying thank you to Matt, and
we got it. I think this is resilience in action.
This is resilience in action, without a doubt.
I was using the app on this, and so I had to switch to the online version. So I apologize for that, Matt. I am sure I missed just tremendous insights, eloquently stated. No one could say it better. And I mean, very sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of a community that I've been a part of for nearly 2 decades, this is such an important bill. It's enabled so much in the community, and we appreciate your work, the chamber's work. Let's if there's anything we can do, our community can do to be able to support you in this effort, please let us know. And thank you for participating in today's event.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Great to be with you. Thanks for shining a light on an important law that needs to be reauthorized. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, folks on the briefing found it useful. One of the things I often try to do is encourage people that know this information fairly well, share it with others so they can have a better kind of intuitive sense of what this law means, particularly if they are new, because we're always having kind of new entrants into this topic area.
Yeah, Matt, thank you to our
gentlemen.
Audience. Thank you. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Yeah.
All right. Have a great day.